All right, what is going on? My name is Dan Parker. I'm a real estate agent here in San Diego, and I'm joined once again by my friend Derrick Evans. We were supposed to chat last week, but a little snafu, I guess you'd say. And we are back at it this week talking about the housing market here in San Diego. Thanks for joining me, Derrick.
What's going on, brother? Always good to chat. Let's drop some knowledge and, kind of try to navigate these interesting waters that we find ourselves in here.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt, and I feel like we've been saying this over the last couple of weeks on both of our channels. You have a fantastic, if anyone doesn't follow your channel right now, highly recommend check out Derrick Evans on YouTube. You've been doing it for 6 years, something crazy like that.
Yeah, like a long time. I think longer than that.
Yeah, and then you were on the radio before that. So, and you're just a wealth of information. So anyone that wants to know what's going on in the local market, definitely check out Derrick's channel. If you are watching live, we love to hear where you are tuning in from. Definitely engage with us in the comments, and we will answer your questions as we are going live here. But yeah, there's just so much change. There's so much uncertainty. We haven't seen this in the real estate market in a long time. And after the last couple of years that have just been such an insane seller's market, I can tell you right off the bat, the beginning of this year was just the craziest time ever as a buyer's agent. It was the first time in my career where I've ever thought, all right, we may have to start removing all contingencies to get offers accepted because it just nothing else works. And I'm good at getting offers accepted. I almost got to that point, but luckily we started to see at least a little bit of a shift away from that. The problem is, I guess you'd call it a problem, is that's happening so freaking fast that it's hard to decipher like what exactly is happening, even at the ground level. Like you and I, we're doing this every single day, helping people buy houses, and you're helping on the lending side. So this is very timely, and I'm excited to chat with you about what you think's going on.
Yeah, it's like when the temperature changes. I'm from Missouri, and we always say if you don't like the weather, just wait because it'll change. What do you do when it goes from 80 to 30? It's kind of like, wow, all right, what's going on? And that's what's really happened here in the San Diego housing market is we've gone from, Las Vegas summer hot, 125 degrees to like Alaska winter cold, just very, very quickly. Mostly interest rates. Sentiment has certainly been affected, and is a part of this. Mostly it's interest rates that's driven this, a quick rise in interest rates, which causes payments to make buyers not be as excited. So you have buyers very, very excited. I want to buy. I want in on this uptick. I want that 2-something%. And now it's like, oh, do you still want in on this for 5% or 6% or 4.5% if you're FHA, VA, for example? So that's been the thing that sort of slowed things down. And what's really interesting, though, Dan, is definitely shifting more towards buyer's market. Here's a quick example in the ground level. 3 buyers writing offers this weekend. We got 3 new escrows this week. So isn't that nice to know that a buyer can like get approved for a loan, go out and buy a house when they want to in San Diego? You couldn't do that for years. It was like, hey, I don't know if you guys are going to be able to get a house or not. Maybe you will, maybe you won't. If you are willing to remove all of your contingencies, pay any appraisal gap, et cetera, maybe you'll get a house. Maybe you still won't.
Yeah.
Now you've got and these are all VA buyers, by the way, which is my specialty.
And that's even getting 3 VA buyers offers accepted is a whole different level with the way the market's been over the last couple of years.
But there's still demand out there. There really is. There's still demand. There's people who want to own homes. And there's this old saying, Dan, that I'll show my gray hairs to you here. This old saying is called, and we used to say this forever. It's been years since we've been able to say it. You marry the house, you date the rate.
Okay? Oh, I'm hearing this all the time right now.
Yeah, everybody's saying that now, right? We've said that. Us graybeards have been saying that for decades. But now finally we've gotten to a point where rates have actually gone up enough that you can say that again.
Yeah.
So yeah, you marry the house, you date the rate. You're going to have this home forever, but you don't have to have the rate forever.
Yep.
And an important thing for people to understand on just regarding that, why am I so bullish on the idea that rates will drop in the next year or two? Well, inflation is really the thing that causes pressure and problems with bonds, and bonds are what determine mortgage rates. So if we have inflationary pressures like we do now, it's going to cause rates to go up. It has to, because those pieces of paper, those bonds are now essentially net negative yielding to inflation. If inflation recesses and resides back a little bit, then we'll be able to see that those bonds make sense as investments now globally. And when I talked to you about this last time, like I believe that they will step in, that the big bond buyers will step in, even if inflation's here, just to scoop up quantity if they're able to get 5.5, 6.5% on these bonds.
Yeah.
So if you believe that inflation can get, under control in the next year or two, then you also would agree with me that rates will drop in the next year or two. So people might say, well, should I wait until then to buy a home? Should I wait until the rates finally drop to buy a house? You could try that. It may work out for you. It may not. But here's the hard part, Dan, and I want to drive this home. If you are saying, I declare I'm going to rent for the next 12 months, what are you doing? Well, you're probably paying $4,000 a month or so if you're renting a house.
That's what it is now. It's somewhere around $4-5 grand.
Yeah, for a house. So let's go low end. Let's say $4,000.
Yeah.
So you're going $4,000. So that's $50,000 for the next year. So you're making a bet. You're placing a bet right now that I want to get rid of $50,000. And so you're essentially saying, I think that the market is going to go down at least $50,000 and interest rates will either, get better or stay the same. In other words, not get worse. And that's the bet that you're making. And it very well could work out for you, but it may not work out for you. And both are possible. So I just want everyone who thinks that, well, I'm going to go rent because that's the safe thing to do. I'm not taking any chances if I go and I rent. No, you are placing a bet on the table.
Yeah, for sure.
You've made a bet. You put your chips on that bet right there. And so it's not an abstaining thing to rent. I think that's an important thing for people to know.
Yeah, at least now you have options. And it's funny, you said you just got 3 offers accepted. The last 3 offers I wrote got accepted. And get this, one of those offers, we also got the seller. We wrote in the contract that they would get a $10,000 credit and that they would pay for, we thought it was going to be $15,000 in new window upgrades, and it cost them $25,000 in new window upgrades. So we ended up getting it under asking once you add in all of these costs and had them do all these items afterwards.
Wow.
It's great for buyers right now. You have options. There's a lot going on out there. Thanks everyone for writing in so far. Jeremy Knight, good to see you, my friends. First one to comment, Dan Diego. Yeah, let's do it. Dan Diego. And we even got what do you call these things? We got super chat. I like this.
My man.
So is the market crashing? That's definitely what we're chatting about today. I have a couple of articles I'm going to pop up here, and we're going to talk about them in more detail that I think is going to get us right into that.
Okay.
We have Denver in the house. Let's see. Growing Up Gaming says San Diego weekly median sale price dropped $24,000 the previous week. It dropped $36,000 this week. So I was just talking to Derrick about this right before we went live, just saying it's really difficult to get accurate data about what's going on in San Diego County. So I'm curious, where are you getting this information from? Because if it's a good source that Derrick and I don't know about, we want to know about it. So I'm not sure where that information is coming from, but we'd like to know.
Yeah, all that data can be very manipulated as well, especially when the market starts to slow down, because it's not intentionally manipulated necessarily, but when the market starts to slow down, the higher price points slow down the most. So you have more transactions taking place in the lower price points, and therefore both your mean and your median will show a lower or a decrease, even though that isn't really true, from what it shows. So you got to pay close. I really don't look at median. Honestly, I don't look at it because it can be so deceiving. It doesn't really tell you a whole lot. I like to look at price per square foot. That's my favorite metric. Price per square foot will tell you a story. And right now that still looks pretty bullish from what I see.
Julie's asking, why don't you guys talk about the fact that most people simply cannot afford the skyrocketing price tags on homes? It's not that people are bidding necessarily, but the price tags are too high. Yeah, I actually have a little chart that I'm going to pull up here in a second showing exactly how expensive homes have gotten with these increase in rates. And, I can say for myself, I think it's for Derrick as well. We're definitely not up here saying, oh, don't worry about how expensive things are getting. We're just saying that if you're trying to bet on whether or not it's a good time to buy right now versus in 2 years, if you have the opportunity to do both, if you can afford the mortgage payment that you get today versus trying to wait and buy 2 years from now, what scenario is going to be better? That's, I think, what we were more or less just analyzing. But yeah, man, my heart goes out to anyone that wants to be a first-time buyer here in San Diego. Derrick works with a lot of military and veterans. And it's, I mean, I wish we had a solution for this stuff, but we don't. So we're just trying to analyze what's going on.
Julie, you need a homeownership strategy is what you need. And it's true. Prices are so high. Like I look at someone who's a nurse or something, you know, making $60,000 a year. Can I qualify for a home? Maybe something, maybe just barely. And that's sad. You know, I wish that wasn't the case, but it is what it is. And so if you want to get on the path to homeownership, it may be the case that you need a 3 or 4 or 5 year plan. That may be the case. Dan's right. You should absolutely make that plan. But what we're kind of talking about is the people who could buy, capable, able buyers who are saying, I'm going to sit it out because I'm making a decision that the market is going a certain direction and I'm going to abstain from playing in this game and I'm going to go over here. That's not really what's happening. You're definitely making a bet. When you rent, you're essentially betting against the real estate market. So you got to kind of realize that. So if I'm renting, I'm saying I'm bearish real estate. And a lot of people don't think that. They think it's some sort of neutral move, and it's not.
Well put. Yeah, completely agree. A couple more of these comments, and we're going to get into some of these news articles. Austin is going to be in the news a lot over the next 4 months. I'm not sure why, Jeremy. You aren't going to tell us why? Like, give us some information on that, man.
There's a lot of submarkets that are going to be in the news.
Oh, as far as, gotcha. Yeah, that definitely makes sense. What do y'all think of Santee? Captain America. I like that. I like that name that you put in there. I think I really like Santee a lot. I think it really depends on what your needs and wants are, where you're working. But I think that is a great spot that's fairly central where you can get decent prices, especially if, like Derrick was just saying, if you want to have a plan, a 3 or 5 year plan to get yourself into the market, that is a good place to start, build up some equity, and then potentially move somewhere else. Or I know people that love Santee. I just closed on, I hope some good friends of mine close on a brand new construction for $1.3 million over in Santee, and they absolutely love it. They're never going to leave. So I think there's a lot to like out there. What do you think, Derrick?
It's not your granddad's Santee, that's for sure.
Yes.
You know, they have, so Santee is one of the best run cities in San Diego County. The people who are running that city are very, very smart. They incentivized businesses many years ago, 6, 7, 8 years ago. They started incentivizing businesses to come there through tax credits and a bunch of stuff with land and leases. And they got what they wanted. They got growth and they got good money coming into that area. And it's not like a discount place anymore. It's not like you can say, well, we're going to go to Santee to get a discount necessarily these days. It's a really thriving place all on its own, and people absolutely love it. So I think, you know, you got to go check it out. If it's your vibe, great. You know, that's where sometimes it makes sense to rent. If you're totally new to San Diego and you're not sure where you want to be, to maybe rent in a place or two to kind of check it out, or say, hey, I'm going to rent central and then I'm going to kind of check out some of these different neighborhoods for a year so I know where I want to be. I do think that makes sense. And Santee is definitely east. And you kind of have, but you have, it's a good location. You have the 125 you can get right to go down towards downtown. Yeah. The 52 will take you to the ocean. So you've got some, you've got a lot of things there in Santee, but the secret is out for sure. So there's no more discounts in Santee.
Make sure you have AC over in Santee because it can get a little bit hot. It's, you know, it's not as bad as if you go a little bit farther east, but it definitely can get a little bit hot over there. And all right, so we were talking a couple of minutes ago about affordability, and I had this brilliant idea for a new segment called Ask Derrick, where I was going to ask you some numbers-based questions. Okay. And I spent way more time on this than I would like to admit for how terrible it turned out. So this was going to have like all these graphics coming in and out. Next time, Derrick, next time we're going to do that, and it's going to be more fun. But what I wanted to show here is, and I'm using some kind of simple numbers, is if you were to buy a house in San Diego County in May of 2020 versus May of 2022. And again, I was just talking about not too long ago about how we have a kind of a difficult time getting like really recent data. So right now, a lot of the data I'm looking at is from May. That's not very helpful for what we're talking about in the long term of like our conversation here today. But I wanted to show people how much more expensive a house is getting here in San Diego. And for this, I basically just plugged in what the median price home was in San Diego County over the last 3 years. I plugged in just to keep it really simple. I went 3% interest rates the last 2 years. Oh, shoot. And this is actually 5.5%. So see, I spent all this time on this and I totally messed it up. This is actually supposed to be 5.5% is what I used for the calculation for May of 2022. Good. And then, so I just did a simple mortgage calculator online to show you if we're going for the more or less same house, that the median home in San Diego going from $580,000 to $864 seems pretty crazy. But when you actually add in the interest rates and the property tax, you can see your payment every single month is actually over doubling. So this affordability part it's tough to look at, and it's tough to say, all right, how are people still buying homes?
It is tough. And I think, from a rate standpoint, we can expect rates to continue to rise as long as inflation continues to rear its ugly head. But believe you me, when we get on the other side of this inflation thing, when we start to see, a couple consecutive month over month readings that are showing just a decline, even can be bad inflation, but just a decline, you're going to see rates start to really drop. So that's kind of what a lot of people are hoping for and what a lot of people are waiting for. And I don't know if that's a year from now or 2 years from now, but that day will come. And so when you look at these kind of numbers right here and you go, well, gosh, it's gotten so much more expensive in San Diego. The natural reaction is to think that, well, it should go down, right? That's gone too high. So now it has to come down. And very well may, we're seeing things happen that are good for buyers. Remember, when you hear things that are bad for the real estate market, really that means that it's bad for sellers, which means it's good for buyers. A lot of buyers will hear things, oh, that's bearish about real estate. I want to stay away from that. No, remember, when you want to buy something is when not everyone wants to buy something. That's when you want to buy it. You don't want to buy something when everyone wants to buy it, because then it's going to be the most expensive. So it is good for buyers. Now, does that mean that you're going to get at the exact bottom? Does that mean that you're going to get, the perfect entry? You don't need it. Here's the good news about real estate. Don't have to be a genius. Don't have to time it perfectly. Don't have to be some savant or read charts or know any of that stuff. All you really need is time. I mean, I know some, of my good buddies who are total dummies. They don't know, and they know it. They'd admit it. But all they did was just buy. That's it. They didn't pick the perfect neighborhood. They didn't pick the right timing. I refinanced them a couple times. But at the end of the day, they're swimming in equity. Yeah. For what reason? Just time. That's it. So, and we could say that even if you bought at the top before the crash of 2008, you're still swimming in equity right now. So we've seen a worst case scenario before. We kind of know how this plays out. I think the most important thing to do is to use that knowledge. Knowledge without application, Dan, is what? Useless.
Knowledge. Yeah.
It's useless.
Yeah.
If you know something, but you don't use it, then it is essentially, by definition, useless. So let's use the information that we've accumulated. Let's use what the market has told us about what has happened, what's going to happen. And COVID was a great example. The market was screaming at us when COVID hit. Literally worst case scenario, horror show. Everyone dives into real estate head first. That was a great sign, a signal from the market that, you know what, when hell breaks loose, we're putting our money, we're placing our bet on the real estate number. And that was a very telltale sign for what to come. And I think that's part of the momentum that we're still seeing today.
I mean, at the end of the day, it goes back to there not being enough new homes being built, supply and demand, and there are people with money. You go back to the last housing crash in 2008, 2009. People were not really able to afford these loans that they were given when we're looking at a broad scale, and homes were being built at a crazy rate. Now it's the opposite. People still have money. I know that the affordability, especially when we're looking at this chart, you look at this and say, who can afford this anymore? Well, there are a lot of people that can. That's the reality. I'm getting them still reaching out to me today. The question in their mind isn't, can I physically afford this? Can a bank give me enough money for this? It's, is this a good decision right now, or should I wait because I think prices might come down? And while interest rates are up here, we were just talking earlier about how interest rates over the course of the next couple of years, I really strongly believe they're gonna come down. You really strongly believe they're gonna come down. I have some more information I'm going to give you guys a little bit later to kind of go along with that as well. So if you just look at this in the long term, even if prices come down a little bit right now, what's going to happen as soon as rates drop again? Prices are going to go back up. So if you're looking at this at a long term, who knows what's going to happen exactly in the market over the next couple of months? It's definitely turning more. It's getting closer to becoming a buyer's market. And even if prices drop a tiny bit, at least you have the option of selection of a lot of different homes to choose from right now. But yeah, it's pretty, I don't know. It's pretty crazy thing to look at this, but still say, I'm still, pretty bullish on the market.
Yeah. Well, I am too. And I'll tell you why. This cycle of people who exited the market, the capable buyers who are now renting, they, for the most part, were in their rental by, let's say, February, March this year. So they're going to be starting to look at the market again at the very end of the year, very beginning of next year. So between now and then, those competitors, if you're a buyer, those are your competitors, they are sidelined. They've sidelined themselves. So it does make sense, and I don't recommend that anybody just run out and buy a house for the sake of it, but get your gun loaded, and be able to be in a position where you can take a shot if you see something that is too good to pass up. I just saw it's starting to happen again. I just saw there's a pool home for sale in Spring Valley that's listed for $629. I have buyers that are going to look at it. And I remember very clearly when you could pull up Redfin and type in 600,000 detached home with a pool, and you'd have options all over the map. And so for me to see those start to get close back to first of all, there's no crash. Someone asked that question. There's no crash happening. Let me just be very clear about that. There's no crash. In order for a crash to happen, things have to be unknown. They have to catch you off guard. They have to catch a lot of people off guard. And it also has to be forced liquidation, so that people have to be forced to make a bad decision and sell low, for example. So that is definitely not happening. Do we have a healthy, pullback, correction, stabilization, normalization period taking place right now? Yeah, absolutely. And there are opportunities in those zones. Well, if you go back and look at the graph of values, that's
Sorry to interrupt you. It's just happening so fast. That's why it's like causing all this commotion.
True. Yeah. And the speed of it is causing fear that, well, if it continues on this trajectory, we'll be at 8% interest rates by the end of the year. And the median price will be $410,000 in San Diego. We all know those two things aren't going to happen, but that's what the trajectories are. So it has caused a fear, cascading fear effect. But I think if you have your pre-approval in place and you keep your eyes on the market, keep looking for that dream home, keep looking for one where you go, man, that's the house. That's a deal. That's what we want. Then you get after it. You don't have to sit here and time the market and say, am I picking the bottom? Do I have this? Do I have that figured out? Find the deal that works for you when that happens and pull the trigger.
Yeah. This is a good market to find opportunities, and you just have to have the patience. We're looking for another property right now, and we're doing the same thing. We have our areas picked out, and we're being very patient, and we're just waiting for the right opportunity. So I completely agree with that. All right. Which place in San Diego is a good place to buy a house besides from Chula Vista? I guess it depends what you're defining a good place to buy a house. So if you're looking for affordability, Chula Vista, Santee, we were just talking about a little while ago. A lot of times when I have people reaching out and they're looking for somewhat of affordability in San Diego, from 800,000 to 1.2 for a single family detached home, we're looking in either Chula Vista, Santee, maybe Serra Mesa, or Claremont. It's probably going to be a little bit on the higher end of that. And then also San Marcos and Escondido. Those are the areas that I'm looking in. But again, it kind of depends what you're looking for when you said a good place to buy. Are you looking for good schools? Are you looking for walkability? Are you looking for affordability?
A lot of people are looking for value when they ask that question. Where's the best investment, for example? And I love Sarah Mesa Tierra Santa. I feel like there's always these deals that pop up in there, and I'm like, how are these so cheap? This is such a great location. So I like that option too. Looking strictly for investment, I mean, look at the multi-billion-dollar project that was approved in West Chula. West Chula is just, it's still coming up. I mean, it's definitely up from where it was a few years ago when I first started recommending investors to take a look at it. But West Chula for sure. I know you said besides Chula Vista, but I'm telling you, West Chula, there's a multi-billion-dollar project that's going in over there on the water.
It's like 20 years in the making.
Yeah, dude, it's going to be a sight to behold. It will be a destination situation. And then, across the road, there are those homes in that area is partially gentrified. So there's opportunity there. But I also like, La Mesa and Spring Valley and Lemon Grove. I think those areas for value, especially Spring Valley, some of the views over there are just incredible. I mean, these houses, they have views that you don't get anywhere. It's really, really cool. So I think those are some areas to check out for sure.
Yeah, that's one area where I would say I think probably like 75% of Spring Valley I'm not a fan of, but there's 25% that's just like gems, like really cool views, really cool spots.
Yes, those views.
Derrick, do you know who Ray Ellen is? Apparently you sound like Ray Ellen, which I get that. I get that.
I'll look him up.
All right. Grown Up Gaming. So we're asking him about where he got those stats from. So Brian DeVore's YouTube videos, also a realtor in San Diego, and median price home can be deceiving. So I'll definitely take a look at that.
Brian DeVore is my homie. He has been for a long time, and he does a Monday market update thing. I'll have to ask him where he gets that data, but I'm pretty sure it's the MLS. And like, no knock on the MLS, but there's 3 MLSs in San Diego. Every time someone throws out data from an MLS,
very well.
they hate each other. Yeah. And so like, not that it's wrong, but like when you look at data, I think it's important to just always look at the same data set. Like you don't want to look at like average price on this data and provider and then average price on this data provider and compare the two. Like you just have to stay in the same data set so that you're comparing against the right thing to see which way the market's going. So I think that's the key is when you look at a data, just look at the same one.
Derrick, I think you're probably, I really like your explanation for these types of questions, but how are people affording these types of homes when the average home in San Diego is $800,000 to $1 million? I make 6 figures and still can't afford it and no debt. Great question.
Yeah. 6 figures isn't what it used to be. I remember thinking like, if you made 6 figures, you were crushing it, and it's just, that's not crushing it anymore. You need to be making like 200. Mm-hmm. And there's that it's out there a lot, but yeah, 6 figures isn't what it used to be. Now, does that mean that you can't buy a house? Make 6 figures? Definitely not. You definitely could buy a house. It may not be $1 million house at today's interest rates, but you could probably buy something. So that's where I think it's a very good idea, Blue Raptor, for you to go and get yourself pre-approved so you know where you stand, and then watch the market. Update your pre-approval as rates change. Get payment quotes on different houses that you like. Get a feel for it. If you want to understand a market, you have to get a feel for it. That usually means at least researching homes online, if not going out and walking through homes that you see. Get a feel for what the market really is. That's the only way you can truly understand value. You can't understand value if you don't see, like someone might bring me a gold coin and be like, that's worth $25,000. Like I wouldn't give you $1 for that. But if I were out shopping for those gold coins and I kept seeing that like no one was willing to let go of one for less than 25 grand, I would start to understand like, okay, I guess it is worth 25 grand. So you have to be involved in the market to really understand what value the market has given to different pieces of property. And although you may be doing well, keep the no debt thing. Yeah. Keep that. Don't build the debt. Keep the debt down. Keep the credit score good. And, maybe ask for a raise. Maybe look at what your opportunities are. I know there's a lot of people out there who are underpaid. Ask for a raise. There's no harm in that. They can't fire you for asking for a raise. So formally ask for raises, guys. There's a lot of people out there who will get them if they just ask.
And if you just look a little bit more long term, the reality is majority of people that are buying $1 million plus homes in San Diego sold another home to be able to buy that home. So they were able to build equity in another property and ratchet up, so to speak, into the next home after building that equity. So I really think, I'm always going to look at real estate. I mean, obviously we're biased, but I'm always going to look at real estate as an opportunity to build wealth over a long period of time. So if you don't have an opportunity to purchase an $800,000 house, then see what 700 gets you, see what 600 gets you, see what you can actually afford, and don't overstretch. Don't get yourself in a situation where you're going to buy something that is going to stress you out every single month because you don't think you're going to be able to afford it. But put yourself in an opportunity to build wealth over the long term through equity.
Yep. 100% agree. And we kind of mentioned it earlier, but down payment assistance programs, these, are coming back in a big way because there are people who make good money, but haven't saved a lot. And so there's all kinds of stuff. I've got one right now, pre-approved, Dan Calhafa, FHA first, 96.5. Yeah. Then the 3.5% second that's forgivable. So it's 100% loan, 100% financing. You have to fit into a box, but just wanted to put that out there. That's something that's also now coming back to the table, and sellers might actually entertain this again. So that's even more. That's another layer of buyers who have been sidelined by the previous market that are now going to start to enter.
And, asking for credits from the seller. Like, let's say the home is, let's just say a $500,000 home. You can offer 510 and ask for $10,000 in credit. So essentially you're paying $500,000, you're paying the asking price, but you're allowing them to pay you back $10,000 in credits that will give you more cash on hand at the end of the day.
Yep,
so things like that, you can get more creative these days, which is really, really nice.
It is.
All right. If you were set on buying in 4 to 6 months, what's your play on a multi-unit? Live and rent, preference 3-plex or 4-plex? What's your play? Living in one of the units and renting the rest is a great hack, especially with the new rules that just got put in place on Airbnbs and short-term rentals in the city of San Diego. You can kind of hack through that situation because they're going to be limiting the amount of properties that can qualify for as a short-term rental. But if you live in the house, if you live in one of the units, then you can short-term rent out the other properties, the other units on your property. And you're more often than not going to make a lot more or have a lot more opportunity to make money off of that investment as opposed to long-term rental. So yeah, I think that's a great idea as long as you can find something that you can afford.
Multi-units are amazing on paper. It looks very sexy. It's something that's possible for a lot of people who don't think it's possible for. It's also not possible for a lot of people who want it. And so this is where we go back to that pre-approval situation. Like, get that sorted, figure that out. What is it going to take? For VA buyers, you want to buy multi-unit. If you need the rental income to qualify, you got to have 6 months PITI. If it's FHA, there's a different calculation that's more complicated. So it's a great idea, and it's something that can work out really, really well for you. But it's also something that you have to get your ducks in a row on a lot up front, because when you see one of these and it's actually a deal or it's really a good property, believe me, there are a lot of people who are well off that have big money and they're trigger pullers, and they are going to see it too. So you got to really have your ducks in a row and be ready to go.
Go head over to Bigger Pockets, check out their forums. There's a lot of good information over there.
Good point.
All right. If you have to buy a house in San Diego in the next few weeks, how much is it going to cost to buy a house? It just really depends on, there's so many variables. You could obviously easily head over to Redfin, Zillow, like take a look at what homes are going for in the areas that you like. Usually what I recommend is for my clients is, I think you were talking about this earlier, Derrick, like find out what neighborhood makes the most sense for you and what neighborhood you feel the best in. And when you're in those neighborhoods, hop on over to Reddit or Redfin or Zillow and just check out what prices are going for a single family, for an attached property, a condo or a townhome with however many bedrooms you need, put in your criteria. But I guess I'll give you the most common request I get is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath detached property in San Diego in a nice neighborhood that is move-in ready. Maybe needs a little bit of work over time, but fairly move-in ready. And for that, I think your probably starting point, you might be able to find something for 700, but I think really comfortably 800 to 900,000 is going to be a starting point for something like that.
Yeah, and just in case the question was more around like cash needed on hand, a good rule of thumb is, like 7%, and you should be good, right? Like closing costs should not exceed 2%. down payment minimum 5%, you should be good. In some cases, you can get away with actually closer to 5%. So, with an FHA purchase. So if you think about that, like if I'm buying a $500,000 place, I might need, 25,000, 30,000. If I'm going FHA, I might need conventional, I might need 35,000. So that's a good number. A lot of people with 40 grand in savings can buy a house. Let's put it that way. They'll be able to buy a house and they don't think they can, but they can. And, sometimes it makes sense to, look at your retirement account and go, you know what, I can get a tax-free loan here, or I can actually withdraw money tax-free from this to buy a house. There's other ways too that you can kind of tap into some of those different things to make it not such a big financial burden, especially if you're on the cusp. If you're like, hey, I could afford to buy a home right now, but if prices went up, if rates went up, I couldn't, or that kind of thing. You want to try to pick your moment and mostly have it be around the property. Don't be subject to the market. Get your gun loaded. That's your pre-approval. Keep your eyes on the market. And when you see something, you pull the trigger. That's going to always be the right thing to do, because it'll keep you from having to try to be an economist and just allow you to be a home buyer, which should be a fun process.
Yeah, it should be. And it ends up being a lot of times. And look, if you're a few weeks out, definitely talk to a lender, give them all your information, let them run your credit, let them figure out exactly how much that is going to cost. A couple of weeks away, you want to dial that stuff in. Man, we're getting a lot of questions today. I'm liking it. Cool. All right. Just want to say thanks, Dan, for being down to earth and for all your great videos on San Diego. Thanks. I appreciate that a lot. Let's see. I own Audio Lux in Santee near Costco, a car customization shop. The demographic here is great. All right.
Cool. Good to know.
Oh, that's right. Because we were talking about Santee. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Very great place. If you're looking for a house here in San Diego, a lot of good options over there.
Yep.
All right. How is the homeless problem? Rolando area, North Park, South Park. Very concerned of homeless there. I want walkable area, but concerned about crime and homeless. Please comment. Yeah. Fairly limited what I can say on as far as safety. That's always a tough thing because I want to give as much information as I can, but as a realtor, my code of ethics, it's kind of limited what I can say on that. And the homeless thing is there's no doubt it's an issue in San Diego. It's really sad what it's turned into over the last 5 and 10 years. I mean, East Village in San Diego, I think could have so much opportunity, but there's just, street after street after street of people living out of tents. And it's definitely a topic that I want to start diving more into. Any thoughts off the top of your head for this question here?
Yeah. I lived in downtown for 6 years, in one stint, and 2 years in another stint. And I love downtown San Diego. I really, really do. But now being a dad, going back down there, it scares me, to be honest with you. And it's not because it's that dangerous. You really don't hear about that much, stuff happening there that you don't hear about everywhere. It's probably just more because I'm more of a wuss now, but it definitely, like, I went there with my wife, to go to a show one time, and I was like, dang, I need to have my head on a swivel here. So, if you like walkability, remember that it doesn't have to be metro or downtown. There's certain neighborhoods, there's certain communities that are very walkable. Look at La Mesa, for example. Mm-hmm. There's places where you can go where you don't have any of those issues and you can have what you want. So that's where your realtor comes in. Your realtor is going to do that work for you. They're going to help you figure that out. You tell them this, hey, this is what I want. I want safety. I want walkability. They go, okay, I'm going to find those places for you. And then we're going to go look at them and we're going to see which ones you like and feel the most safe in. And so, just don't think it has to be sort of the old fashioned idea of, well, it's got to be downtown or it's got to be Hillcrest. These are the only places where you can live and walk. It's not true. A lot of communities have been built to be more walkable in the last 10, 15 years. And La Mesa is just one of them, but there's like San Leo Hills and there's other places too, where you can find that. And those are great places to live.
Yeah, I have some clients closing in San Leo Hills later this week, and that's one of those. One of the things they told me was, "Dan, we want a walkable lifestyle," and that's one of the places you can get it. And it's just that is really a hidden gem in San Diego. I feel like 100%. Very few people know about it. It had more affordability. Now it's kind of creeping up into the $1 million price point. But it's a really cool area with a nice little downtown, a lot of like public space and things like that.
Super cool place.
Here's another option for you: knowledge without application, the internet. Okay, let's hop on over to some of these news articles real quick. Keep these questions coming, you guys. Going to do this here. Whoa. There we go.
Hey,
All right. So
hey.
this I just pulled up right now. This is San Diego County active listing inventory. And, it's kind of, I'm sorry, it's a little bit hard for you guys to see broadly. Is that better? No, that's worse. All right. I'm going to pull this off here.
I can see it starts in 2012, right?
Yep.
And takes us to present day.
Yeah, and this is well, actually, here let's start with the second one. San Diego County active listing inventory year over year. So obviously, you can see the orange line is where 2022 is, and you can see how drastic this is. We started the year with less than 2,000 homes for sale in a county of 3.35 million people, and we just went over 4,000 homes for sale. Now, obviously, it's just like I was saying earlier. This is a drastic increase, but look at. We had 2021 is in red, 2020 is in green, 2019 is in purple. And 2019 is really more of what like the rolling 3-year average was before COVID, before the pandemic. We're still not even anywhere near this spot up here. Now, if you keep following this line, if things keep going the way that it's going, I mean, obviously we're going to get there pretty quick. But I don't know. We can talk a little bit more about what we think is going to happen. But this is pretty darn interesting to look at year over year what's happening. And I, for one, am very glad that we're past where we were last year. I'm very glad that we're getting up into this range. But we really need to get into like the $10,000 to $12,000 or 10 to 12,000 active homes in the market to be able to get to more of a neutral market. So that's where we have to end up.
Yeah, the trajectory there you see looks bad, right? And that's what people are seeing, and they're going, "Oh, well, if that continues, we'll have 500,000 homes for sale by the end of the year." And that's obviously not going to happen. So the question is, when does that stop? Well, just keep in mind too, a lot of people who are throwing their home on the market right now kind of have no business being on the market. They still think, because people before they put their home on the market, they spend 3 or 4 months. Usually, they figure it out like 3 or 4 months before they even put it on the market, or at least 3 or 4 weeks. They're considering it, they're talking about it, and then they put it on. So most people putting their home on the market today are not aware of what the market is. They think it is what it was when they researched it 3 or 4 months ago, and they said, okay, we're going to sell in July. Yeah, we're going to put it on the market in July. And they're having this conversation in February.
Yes.
So there's a lot of people, I think, who have put their homes on the market that are going to end up taking them off and actually not selling them. And that's one of the things that, you're not going to see in any graph, but there's just a lot of people who thought they were going to be able to just throw a home on the market and have it just sell like a hotcake. And that is not going to happen. So maybe they'll take it off the market. Maybe they'll sell it to an investor, maybe they'll turn it into a rental, who knows? But I think you're going to see a lot of these listings that don't sell as expected, just kind of come off the market for a while, whether that's a year or 2 or whatever. But there's some of that's going to go on for sure. It's just a matter of how much.
That's a good point, man. I didn't even think about that in too much detail, but just thinking about a lot of the reason why the inventory is going up so fast is because potential sellers out there are thinking we're hitting the top of the market. We're hitting the top of the market. And I have to capitalize on this. And to actually time the market perfectly is impossible, whether you're talking about, real estate or crypto or stocks or whatever it is. But that's kind of what we saw happen right as rates were going up really fast. So that is why things are so extreme. That is why I think you're going to see this start to mellow out at least a little bit. And it's not going to go directly up into 7,000 homes. And I think you're right. That makes a lot of sense. That a lot of people they wanted to see what they can get, and when they can't get what they wanted, and their house doesn't sell in 1 or 2 weeks, then they're going to start thinking, all right, maybe I just wasn't really that serious. Let's hold on to this property. Let's rent it out. Whatever we want to do. I think that's very, very likely.
Yeah, for sure, it's going to happen.
All right, home sales fall again in May as higher prices and mortgage rates spiked. Notice, and we talk about this all the time, but I think it's always worth pointing out. This makes it sound like home prices have dropped, but home sales have fallen compared to home sales this time last year. So I just thought that that was an interesting headline. Now our prices starting to drop. I believe that they are, but again, I don't have the actual most recent data on that. That's going to come out probably in about a week from CoreLogic, which is what I get as a member of the local MLS, or one of the 3 local MLSs. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happened throughout June. But just know, like, when you're looking at these articles, like, sometimes you have to read these headlines once or twice.
Yeah, there's a lot of clickbait out there, and read the article. Don't trust a headline in any case. Always read the actual articles, particularly towards the end. That's when they like to stuff the truth in there.
Yeah.
Towards the very end.
I thought this one was pretty interesting too. So the housing market is entering the most significant contraction in activity since 2006. Derrick, do you want to go ahead and guess? Or maybe this is a good ask, Derrick. What are they going off of to say that we're having the most significant contraction in activity since 2006? What marker are they?
Mortgage applications, be my guess.
Bingo, bango. So they're basing that 100% off of how many mortgage applications they are. Now, I will say, because we have talked about this before, they are saying specifically for mortgage applications for a purchase. So it's not including refinancing. And they're saying that mortgage applications for purchase are down 40% from where they usually are in this season. So, I mean, that is pretty darn interesting to look at. Obviously, it makes a lot of sense too. I mean, when we just went back at that slide a couple of slides ago, where I showed you guys how much more expensive a house is today versus 2 years ago, of course, fewer people can afford it. So I think that is pretty interesting.
Yeah, and you're right. It makes sense, right? We have rates going up very quickly. Of course, people are going to put the brakes on, and say, "Hey, I'm gonna slow down right now." That's what I'm really seeing from buyers, is just slowing down. They're not in a hurry to get their application in. They're not in a hurry, to put an offer in and do all kinds of things. They've slowed down. They've slowed their roll. And by the way, this is a good thing. I mean, my goodness, it was needed. Would have been nice if it happened a year ago. Is what it is. So here we are. People finally going, let's take a breath. Let's not just assume that this is all going to the moon tomorrow. Let's step back, see what makes sense, be deliberate about it. This is a good thing. This is a good thing.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think this is great, because you were kind of talking about interest rates earlier and this is what I'm hearing from everyone that I really respect on the lending side of things. I'm hearing over and over again that rates are going to more than likely continue to rise through the course of the year. That's what the expectation should be. But over the course of the next couple of years, we likely will see rates come back down. And who knows how long before that's going to happen. But, there's always a lot of talk about what the Fed chair is saying. Jerome Powell?
Yeah.
And so this article is saying the Fed plans to reset the housing market, raising likelihood of falling home prices. But I thought that was a really fun nugget in here. So here's what Powell had to say. We saw home prices moving up very, very strongly for the last couple of years. So that changes now, and rates have moved up. And I'm just going to skip through to the end of this paragraph, where he says, we need to get back to a place where supply and demand are back together and where inflation is down low again. We all know that they're raising rates because they want to get a handle on inflation. But what they end up saying here is they want to get back to a place where mortgage rates are low again. So that is their goal. They want to get to the place where we can lower interest rates again. Just like you were saying, Derrick.
100%. That's their goal. There's no question about it. They have to keep rates low. The country cannot run off rates like this. They can't pay the debt. So rates have to be low long term. That is 100% the goal. They can't do it right now, though. That's the reason why it's so important for rates to be low, Dan, that the Fed was willing to, I'm going to say it, lie to us and tell us that inflation was transitory. Stupidest thing I've ever heard. And because they so desperately did not want to raise rates that they were willing to just let it nuke for a year and see what happened. And that was a huge mistake, of course, that they're now realizing. But they're not very good at forward looking. They're good at backward looking. Sure. But they will tell you, you'll see, they'll tell you what their plan is. They want prices to be more reasonable. That's important because deflationary activity is good against inflation. So
Mhm.
deflationary activity in housing would be good for them, and they're definitely, imposing that. But ultimately, they want rates to be low, and maybe we won't see the all-time lows in the next 2-3 years,
Sure.
but I think we'll get in the twos, maybe the low threes. We'll see rates go down again. And there's no question that as soon as they have the green light, as soon as they can justify stopping the raising of rates, as soon as they can justify lowering rates or easing in any way, they will do it.
Yeah, this just sentence right here would give me a lot. I mean, it gives me a lot of confidence as a buyer out there right now looking for a property. I really truly believe that we're going to be in this situation to where you can have opportunities right now. You can find good deals out there. You can find a seller that, if you're patient, is overreacting to the market and overreacting to the lack of offers coming in, and get some good opportunities out there and have the opportunity to refinance down the road. I think that is a real good likelihood. Again, I don't think it's a good strategy to tell yourself, all right, well, I can hold out for 2 years, and then after that, I need to refinance. Otherwise, I'm never going to be able to afford this. Obviously, that's not a good strategy. You want to make sure that you're looking at it in the long run. But I still think this is extremely helpful to look at and say, this could be a very good opportunity for me and for other people out there.
Agree.
All right. Redfin CEO says sellers are starting to freak out as the market shifts. Is this what you're seeing out there, Derrick?
I've seen a lot of people freaking out.
Yeah.
A lot of people involved in these transactions are freaking out. Then I got realtors that are texting me 5 times a day for update. What's the current update? What's the status now? What's the update now? How about now? How about now? And so a lot of people freaking out. Listen, change is rough. It's hard for people, especially people who aren't prepared for it. Change is not something that we're good at as human beings unless you've worked on yourself to be good at it. So yeah, this is a situation where a lot of people are going to be freaked out. Sellers are going to be freaked out. Buyers are going to be freaked out. Agents on both sides are going to be freaked out. The best thing everyone can do is just realize that no one's ever like made a fortune or made a great decision while they're freaked out. Best thing to do is take a breath, step back, go, everything's fine. Take a moment, let a little space there, and try to clear your head before you make those decisions or make those calls or send those texts. I got nasty texts coming in from people like this is just weird stuff. Like, okay, I realize that people are under stress, things are going on. I'm not going to reflect back that negativity to them. I'm either going to not respond, or I'm going to respond with something so positive that they can't do anything but respond positively back to it. So yeah, keeping a level head is definitely a better way to win. But for sure, a lot of people are freaking out. I don't talk to sellers, but I bet you they are freaking out for sure.
Well, they're allowed to talk to you guys now. Wasn't that a rule that just changed this year, that they can actually interact with a buyer's lender directly
Oh,
without
really?
that information
Oh,
or
I
something?
don't know. I've talked to them occasionally, like sometimes you need to talk to a seller because like whatever reason a loan gets delayed. And I'll always tell the listing agent like, hey, this is going to be okay. I'll talk to your seller for you if you want me to. But that doesn't happen very often, very rare, once or twice a year. So I don't talk to that many sellers anymore. And, we did the TV show when this listing back in the day, I talked to sellers all day, every day. And I had a lot bigger feel of the market at that time for sellers. But these days, I don't talk to very many of them, but I can just only imagine what it's like trying to be the listing agent and explain how fast things have changed.
Yeah.
It's tough. It's tough not to be the messenger who gets shot in that situation.
Yeah. And yeah, there definitely are more tough conversations right now. There's a lot more just hesitancy and worries that even once you're under contract, that the buyer is going to fall through for whatever reason. And I think it's just really important, if you do want to sell your house right now, have a very good strategy in place based on this current market. Don't get too greedy based off of comps. Put yourself in a situation to where you can get a good offer in the first couple of weeks, and know that it might take a couple of weeks. You might not get an offer the first week or the second week, and maybe you'll get multiple offers on that third week. Have a little bit of patience, but also a really good strategy in place. All right. I know we're running long here. We're running along here, but let's hop one or two more questions if you have time for it,
Yeah,
Derrick.
let's do it.
All right. The pool home in Spring Valley dropped about $100,000. Looks like 2 trailer homes glued together. Sell that to your clients. I'm not sure what pool home in Spring Valley that is. Derrick, do you have any idea?
That is the one I'm talking about, I guess. I don't know.
Oh,
Yeah, I don't know. It wasn't like perfect, especially the backyard. was like a concrete backyard that had some stuff kind of growing, it probably needed a little bit of love. But yeah, there's definitely a pool and, nice insides, nice area of Spring Valley. So yeah, as you mentioned, real estate is very local. I tried to explain this in my video yesterday. Like, you think you're in the San Diego market, you're not. You're in the Spring Valley 3-bed, 2-bath, 1,100 square foot with a pool market.
Yeah.
Like that, your market is your home. So, or whatever. You're in the 4-bed, 2.5-bath raised ranch in Rancho Bernardo market. That's the market that you're in.
Yeah.
So your market is your house, your neighborhood, not San Diego, not whatever, not the county. It's your home, your area. So the thing to learn from that is when you say know your market, know what homes like yours are doing. Know what homes like the ones that you like are doing. That's the market that we're talking about.
And just knowing that, I think the homes are going to have the biggest challenge right now are the homes that are close to a busy road, close to a freeway. They have a little bit more work than most buyers want to do. They have things that are outdated. Not that you have to get your home completely flipped over, but just realizing that is going to have a massive effect on buyers right now when they have a selection. They have homes to choose from.
Yep. And they're not too quick to the trigger.
Yeah. All right, Derrick, what are the requirements for a second home right now? How long do you need to show job history wise? Can I still sign for B&B for an investment home? And I think if you maybe want to just mention how rates have increased for second home starting this year, if you're going to, I don't know if it's just for short-term rentals or just for second homes altogether.
Second home actually means that you're going to live there for 6 months of the year.
Okay.
So very rarely does someone actually qualify for a second home, and they've really clamped down on that from an underwriting perspective. Your only options on the 1003 are primary residence, second home, and investment property. And really, second home doesn't apply for very many people, but you can get a lower down payment on purchasing if you can make it fly. It's just more difficult to qualify. You have to show your travel expenses to go there and when you're going to go and how you're going to work remotely, and like it's a little bit more intricate. But 10% down is what you can get a home if you can make that work. 10% down. Otherwise, you're talking investment property. Investment property, you need a minimum of 20%, and rates really are pretty ugly at 20%. You really need 25 to start making it just not be so hard to look at. But you can get into investment property for 20% down. So I have a gentleman who's buying one right now. He actually knew someone who wanted to rent. I was like, well, I'll buy the house so you can rent. So, for how long do you need to show job history? You don't really, job history is something that if you have big gaps, you have to have a good explanation. Like, I was in school, or, the company shut down, I was looking for work, or you have to have some sort of explanation. But technically, like if you're just coming out of school, you can get a job offer, not even have started the job yet, and you can close a home loan with that, as long as you've met all the requirements for the employment. So, history is just going to be kind of dependent upon what you're coming from, what's going to be required. But you can buy an investment property and do an Airbnb. I would just say, if you're going to do Airbnb, do a lot of research about the area. Look at the competition of other Airbnbs in that area. Do a flexible search so you can see all the different properties, as many of them as possible, and see what the rules are and what is the undertone for that area. Like, is there a rebellion rising up against Airbnbs in that area? You gotta watch out for that, because if you buy a property just to Airbnb it, you want to make sure it's in a very Airbnb safe location, because they can, as the city of San Diego showed us, they can rise up and say, no more. We're going to dictate this whole thing from here on out. Yeah. So that's my number one thing on those. Just be careful with that.
So that was actually the last video that I did. If you go look at my last video, was about the change in rules in the city of San Diego, and actually goes through a little bit of the process of finding and securing an investment property for short-term rentals, and how it differs in what you can potentially make in your cash-on-cash return versus long-term rentals. Also, a little bit about just what you were saying. I think doing the research and making sure that you can obviously use it as a short-term rental. There are weird rules all over the place. Like in Oceanside, they're very short-term rental friendly, but not if the property has an ADU on the property for whatever reason. Like, just a very specific rule for Oceanside. And so and basically just Google whatever area, whatever city you're looking for, Google that city, and then put short-term rental. And more often than not, like the first or second search result is going to be a government website that's going to give you all the rules. I prefer to look for a place that has more strict rules, because I feel like everywhere is going to have strict rules eventually. And I'd rather go into a place that has them set so I know the guidelines, as opposed to somewhere that's going to get new rules down the line that are going to completely screw you. Just like in the city of San Diego, where we have about 2% of the just 2% of the inventory in San Diego currently is short-term rentals, and they're knocking that down to 1%. So it's about 6,500, 7,000 homes are no longer going to qualify as a short-term rental. So you do not want to be in that type of situation where there's going to be a lottery and at the end of the year, and you're not going to have an opportunity to rent out your house or make a profit on it anymore.
Great advice.
Willie wants to know, what about oceanfront homes in La Jolla Shores, Point Loma, Pacific Beach, Ocean Beach? Yes. Those homes are really cool. But I can show you. Let's see. I can show you here. Sorry, 1 second. Technical difficulties here, my friends. All right. So what you're talking about is the luxury homes in San Diego. So San Diego County luxury homes, active listing inventory year over year. And it's kind of interesting because this says $1.5 million plus. I think luxury homes in San Diego, I mean, I would put it almost at like 2 million or 2.5 plus now, just the way things have gone. It's
at least 2.
Crazy. But just, you can see it's the same thing. Active inventory year over year is very high. The demand for these properties is also decreasing. So people are still buying these properties. Traditionally, luxury homes, luxury properties would take longer to sell. Traditionally, they would take 2 years to sell a, $3, $4, $5, $10 million home. Over the last 2 years, they've been selling just as fast as everything else, pretty much as fast as everything else. But I think that we're starting to get back to the point where they're just going to take a little bit longer, because it's a very specific type of person that is looking for that specific type of property, and they have other options to choose from.
100%. Yeah, there's definitely some that have been out there on the market for a long time. But if you look at those oceanfront homes in general, a lot of them are second homes. A lot of them are, homes for people who don't live there as their primary residence. They may spend a lot of time there. A lot of them just sit there. That's the thing that blew me away when I lived in Del Mar. Like, how many of these homes are really, really nice and they're in great locations? They just sit there. I never see a soul. So that is not a market that does well in sort of a bearish sentiment like that we have right now, because those people might decide, we never at that house anyway. Throw it on there, and you could see based on that graph that inventory has been spiking too. So those homes will sit a little bit longer. It's a totally different strategy. If you're buying a home like that, you might be able to get a really good deal. You might be able to find a really wealthy seller who doesn't care and just wants it off their plate. So yeah, I would knock on some doors if you're in that market right about now.
Yeah, I can tell you, I run a lot on Neptune Ave in Encinitas, which is Leucadia, north part of Encinitas, and it's the homes right along the kind of cliffs, the bluffs edge. And I can tell you there are more homes for sale right there on that street right now than I've ever seen. So there definitely are more homes for sale. It's pretty crazy how expensive they get. But I completely agree. You just got to find the people that are motivated. All right. Quick question or two more. So thank you guys. I have my pre-approval set. I'm holding cash ready for the opportunity. That's the way to do it. The Spaniard, don't worry. California sending out stimulus checks. Crazy. Sure. So yeah, if anyone hasn't seen, look, dive a little bit into it. And I know you know this is Spaniard because you're always reading up on this stuff, but I think it's up to $1,200 per family. And when you really start to look at it, for most people, it's gonna be like $600. It's important to know that they aren't printing money to make this happen, that there is an excess of what's the word I'm looking for? There's
tax revenue.
Yes. So it's our tax dollars coming back to us. So, but yes, that is happening. It's going to be a couple $100. All right. Well, I think, let's see. What do you got here, Spaniard? Why is Lennar dropping new home prices and many walking away from their deposits on new homes? Because
I can tell you why.
They suck. They are, yeah. Look, we talked, I think, in the last conversation that we had, I don't know if it was on this channel or on your channel, Derrick, but we were talking in some pretty we got pretty deep on the conversation for new construction homes. And the reality is the builders, most of the builders got very, very, very greedy over the last couple of years. Their quality of service, their quality of products went down. They turned their backs to real estate agents and basically told people, we are not allowing real estate agents to represent you. And so there are certain builders that I would say most real estate agents would not recommend, and not just because they're not getting a commission, but because of when you wrap all of these things up, all these things together, it's just not a good quality product. It's not something that I would recommend. And if I'm being completely honest, Lennar is the number one builder, I'd say, in San Diego that my clients have issues with. And they were the very first ones to tell people, no, we are not going to let you be represented by a real estate agent. And they were the first builder in San Diego to also go to the bidding system and say, all right, there's 50 people that are bidding for these 8 properties. They're starting at this price, and go tell us how much you're going to pay for it. That's what they've been doing over the last 2 years. And it's really going to come back and bite them in the butt.
Yeah. I mean, let's put it this way. This is not the market where you want to be selling the most expensive inventory. And, new homes are the most expensive, as they should be. They're brand new, right? Yep. They should be the most expensive. It's not a knock, but they are the most expensive inventory out there. Melrose, tax rates, HOA fees, price points, price per square foot. They're the most expensive. You don't want to have that kind of inventory in this market. That's what's going on, is that people who are looking at it, they've been through this whole rigmarole to just get on a list, and they've been herded like cattle. And then all of a sudden they're looking at going, what are we doing? This place is so expensive. That's what's happening. It's the most expensive inventory, and the most expensive inventory right now is a Roach Motel. The buyers are not chomping at the bit to go buy the most expensive houses in an area right now.
And again, it really depends on what area you're talking about. I know Three Roots is still selling like crazy, but when you're getting out a little bit further into, a little bit more East County, more south, up north, there's going to be less demand because people are going to those areas because they want more value. And in this market, when things are changing so fast, they're starting to say, either I'm going to hold off or I can find better value somewhere else. Well, I think that is a great way to end it.
Beautiful.
Derrick, thanks for being on, man. This was a lot of fun. I think we're going to do these a little bit more regularly. And your channel, well, if someone wants to check out your channel, I'm going to put it in the comments below. I forgot to do that, but Derrick, DRRICKEVENS.
That's right.
And you're going to find him on YouTube.
Correct, sir. I appreciate you having me on. We'll have you on my channel soon. I look forward to the chat. And hopefully you share this with your friends. Let's help make them smarter than everyone else.
I love it, man. And thanks for everyone that tuned in. 40 people right now. That's great. I love it.
Rock and roll.
Have a great day, you guys.
Take care, guys.